All right, back in the saddle. Post-game show. I'm Jordan. Got Petrie over here to my right. Um, it's been a few weeks. I was MIA, traveling for the last 2 weeks. I was actually at the Florida State game last week. That was cool. It was my. It's funny because it was my first game, my first Kings game ever, let alone my first Kings game at Hard Rock, and
in Florida State.
yeah, and so it was such a cool experience just to be there and be doing something that I've uh, pictured in my head and fantasized about and just looked forward to for the last 20 years. That I actually think I was probably the happiest Miami fan in the entire stadium, just because it was like I was doing a bucket list thing, and the game could not ruin that for me. That being said, that was some pretty horrendous football for the Miami Hurricanes. But
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have a lot of games that you can point to and say we did absolutely zero things correct. But let me put it this way: I think we had a sack on the first play of the opening drive,
yeah,
and then it was everything else was bad after that
I
point.
think that was the first play of the game. If or we had at least a tackle
Yeah,
for a loss on the first play of the game. And dude, I know people were trying to spin the narrative because Hard Rock emptied out pretty quick in the third quarter. Um, people just never came back to their seat after halftime. But that stadium was full. It was a sellout for sure. Uh, it at least looked like 90% plus capacity.
yeah.
By the time that the Canes ran through the smoke, so it was a very full stadium. It's just too bad we couldn't capitalize on that energy. But anyways, moving on. Um, Georgia Tech game. Canes win 35-14. First career start for Jakari Brown, I should say. Been trying to work on that one.
hmm
So, Petrie, go ahead and give me what are your knee-jerk reactions from this game?
Yeah, as far as it goes, Jakari Brown is electric, dude. He's so good. I mean, the throws he did, like we will touch on that, of course.
Yep.
All three of the touchdowns were not particularly pretty.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were a product of his just versatility and his ability
Yep.
to run. The defense has to respect that. They get sucked in on that. He's able to float it right over their heads. And yeah, it's not a pretty ball, but
Yeah.
it scores a touchdown, and it wouldn't have happened without his threat of making big plays like that on his feet.
I agree. And let's just dig into Jakari Brown right now. First, yeah, I think his ability to run the ball just added a level of dynamicism. It made our offense a lot more dynamic. Um, Probably the first time all year that we looked tough to stop. That could have been our competition, but it was really nice to see that defenses kind of had to pick their poison. I think that's kind of the first time I felt that way all year. Is
Mm-hmm.
that like we had some success in the running game. Rooster went for what, like 115 yards.
Yeah, he had a great day, actually.
Yeah.
A little over 7 yards per carry and a touchdown. So,
Yep. And Brown went for what, like 87, I believe, if I read the box score correctly. And it really opened up these great red zone calls that Josh Gaddis came up with. And I was joking in our group chat with Gino, who couldn't be with us today, but I kept calling them garbage can balls because someone on Twitter said that each of his touchdown throws looked like a balloon that was slowly falling to the ground, which which is a pretty accurate description. But at the same time, and we'll talk about our touchdown ratio a little later, at the same time, like, at least we're scoring touchdowns. And that's the baby step for today, man. Like give all the credit in the world to Jakari Brown. We put him in the game and we score 35 points.
yeah, and that really is a big factor of it too. He really helps move the ball, but it did set up those red zone touchdowns that you just mentioned right there.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to really be hyped up over the yards, which they're a very important statistic, but I feel it's
Yeah.
comparable to how in basketball you're excited when your team's good at shooting free throws. It's like,
Yeah.
good job at shooting the free throws, but we need some threes. Same thing in football. Good job at getting those yards, getting first downs. That's awesome, but we need touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah. It's This is a style of football that we really haven't seen from the Canes. I can't remember us fully committing, to like the running QB style of play ever. At least in my time as a fan, thinking of some of our past quarterbacks, it was kind of nice,
Yeah.
to just like the University of Florida has done that a lot in the last few years, where they'll just stick an athlete back there and be like, make some magic happen. And they've actually had a lot more quarterback success than we have doing that. So I'm very open-minded to the idea of making Jakuri the starter. We'll see what happens next year, but I feel very comfortable with Jakari Brown as the starting quarterback for as much as he needs to this season.
Yeah, I think he finishes the year for what it's worth, especially after today. Certainly did not do enough to warrant consideration to go back to Jake. I wouldn't think. I don't think that he played poorly, is what I'm saying. He played very well, and he will be the starter at Clemson. And then from there, I think that the Clemson game leads into him being the starter for the season finale with Pittsburgh, because even if Clemson absolutely spanks us, which I do think will happen, I think a lot of that is going to come down to like, well, you can't really put that on Jakari. You know what I'm saying? He was playing high school ball a year ago.
Yeah, and he is what he is, right? In the sense of he's not a great quarterback right now. I think I'm confident in saying he's a good football player. I think we saw that today. He's a very good football player who plays quarterback. I would not call him a great quarterback right now, but that's okay. As you said, he was playing high school football last year. There's a lot of coaching that can be done. There's a lot of learning and growing on his part that can be done. So I'm with you. Like, if we get the doors blown off at Clemson next week, it's going to be tough to just kind of attach that to Jakari's legacy as a UM player, in your second start going to Clemson and really, who would have thought that we'd be at this point in the season starting Jakari Brown if you would have asked us back in August with a healthy Jake Garcia?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think anybody really predicted the season going as it did. You had fans, and this is, again, preseason. You had fans, the pessimistic ones, that were saying, hey, 8-4, 7-5 until proven otherwise. And then here now, look at us. We have 5 now. Clemson, probably a loss. And then Pittsburgh, we can talk about them as much as you'd like. They looked solid today. The final score is a little bit of the final score is a little deceptive, but they really played a fantastic game on defense. So I don't feel great about Pitt either. But we're going to be looking at a thing where if we lose to Clemson next week, we are fighting the final game of the season for bowl eligibility. Don't think any fan would have called that. They probably would have said, hey, maybe we're bowl eligible prior to Clemson. We maybe lose to Clemson, probably finish the season 7 or 8 wins. But I don't think anybody had us fighting for 6 in the last week of the season.
Yeah, it has been a bizarre year. It's kind of weird. Like, I did not see it going this badly. You could have run this season in a simulation like 100 times out of 100. And I would have guessed that it going this bad would have been like less than 5 times.
Yeah.
Now seeing it though, it makes sense. Maybe we all overhyped the abilities of players on the roster. Kind of been a hard pill to swallow that guys like James Williams aren't living up to their 5-star billing when they came out of high school. That's kind of tough. The struggles on offense are Broyles award-winning offensive coordinator not living up to his Broyles award-winning capabilities. So it's just, I don't know why we're surprised though. We're University of Miami fans. Why were we surprised?
No, and we shouldn't be. We shouldn't be surprised in any kind of capacity because this is who they've proven to be. I think I said it. Obviously, it's been a little while since we last did a program, but I've said it before. I was like, maybe we are that team that's like, hey, wow, you guys really beat down on Georgia Tech. Good game for Miami. You know, not expected like, yeah, well, you're Miami. You're supposed to beat them 35-7, like, or 14 rather. I correct myself. Garbage time touchdown, because of course we couldn't ice the game to win it. Had to get a penalty to give them a free first down. Of course that would make sense. They're trying to give away the game, but so is Miami. So to have won 35-14, that's a result that in the heyday of the U, they would have said, well, 35-14, why wasn't it 42-7? Now we're sitting here going 35-14. Hey, that's a nice, cute little win for the Hurricanes.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Did you see how bizarre the box score was for the quarterbacks on Georgia Tech? So they played
both threw about 50%.
And they had like almost the exact same stat line. So Zach Gibson was 12 of 21 for 120 yards. And Zach Pyron was 12 of 22 for 114 yards. Both had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
They both had the same. That is the definition of a 2-quarterback system right there.
I know, right?
Purely.
Yeah. And we should shout out Cam Kinchens, 3 interceptions on the day. The 99-yard touchdown return right after I turned the TV off. I didn't get to see it live. So, yeah.
Second longest in Miami history, only to Ed Reed, if I'm not mistaken, has the longest one. Unless I'm wrong about that, I could be wrong, but they think they said it during the program, during the actual game.
Makes sense. So,
well, whatever. 99-yard pick six belongs in some kind of book. So there you go. But man, I have to give Kinchens a tremendous credit. He's really been the defensive MVP as far as I'm concerned this season. The defensive line gets a very tremendous bill of credit. But I feel like every time I turn around, Kinchens is making a proper form, strong tackle right on a ball carrier, middle of the field. They got 2 yards until they get the first down. What do a lot of the Miami players do sometimes? Miss the tackle, go for the big hit, whatever the case may be. Guy bounces off. And instead of being stopped short of the first down, they end up getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yards past it. Kinchens always wrapping up, proper form, strong tackle, brings the guy right to the ground.
Yeah.
And he does that more consistently than anybody on the team.
Yeah, and credit to him
off of the defensive line. He does that more consistently than anybody besides the defensive line.
For sure. And credit to him in the sense of we had a highly touted defensive backfield coming into the season. I think we were all excited about it. Especially at safety, we just felt like that room was full of dogs, full of guys that could, be difference makers, right? We had at least 3 difference makers in that position group. And Kinchens is kind of the only difference maker on level 2 and 3 of the defense, it feels like, which is kind of disappointing, considering the level of blue chip talent that we have on levels 2 and 3 of the defense.
Yeah, and I like the way you said it as far as like the talent regarding that. When we were really looking at the safety duo of Cameron Kinchens and James Williams before the season, I was like, it's very good that they are such different kinds of player. I was like, we're going to have a good balance. Cam Kinchens, the more fundamentally sound, technically appropriate, good fundamental skill player, making proper plays in important moments. Whereas James Williams, a little bit more of a home run hitter. He's going to blow up a guy over the middle, force a fumble. He's going to come up with a big interception and make some kind of an athletic return. And we're going to get a nice little balance of style and substance. We've gotten a lot of the substance, not so much of the style.
Yeah.
And the style makes the big plays. I don't know how to explain it other than that. The style versus the substance.
Yeah.
The style turns into the big plays. Substance gets you the ball back, but the style gets you the points.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. And I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'm so morbidly curious about what this roster is going to look like next season. I think we can kind of get a feel for guys that have one foot out the door. I don't know the level of propriety that would be to start naming guys by name. But I'm getting a sense that a significant number of kids are already looking to where they'll be playing next year in a different program.
100%
Um,
agree. Yeah, I mean, I think it was Gabby said it earlier this week. Somebody said, over under 30 transfers, and he was like over.
oh,
Pretty,
really?
and he seemed confident
Wow.
on that. Now, I don't know if he just means like overall turnover of the roster.
Yeah.
We're going to get kids from signing day, transfers in, transfers out. You add up all of that stuff, and yeah, you might be talking about 40 total different kinds
Yeah.
of player. Um, I don't know. I wouldn't
Wow.
question
That's a
his.
big number. Yeah, I know.
It seems I wouldn't question his information because he seems to be
For sure.
very respectable, well reputed, and he's known. Everybody gives him the credibility that he has
Absolutely.
earned and deserves. So when he says over 30, I'm sitting there going like, well, you're saying over 30 easily, which
Yeah.
which means to me that it's definitely going to be over 30. Of course, even if it was just 30, even if it was 29, that's a lot. That's a lot.
That
You
is,
know,
I mean, dude, if it was 15 guys
that's
transferring,
still a
that's a
lot.
lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
exactly. And you're talking
I
about
mean,
over 30. Well,
yeah, you have to think. I mean, I can see a handful of like pass catchers moving on. I mean, I think our running back room looks very different next year.
yeah,
Um, our quarterback room is going to look very different. I would not be surprised if Jakari is the only player that returns in the quarterback room. Um, you know, I don't think TVD would transfer. I just don't really see a reason for him to play college football next year.
hmm
But Jake, I mean, if Jake doesn't get to play again this year and doesn't really get to improve his stock as a
stock.
college
Yeah,
football player, I mean, I think it would just be a smart business move for him. I wouldn't even criticize it at all. Like, it's. I mean, he's pursuing his dreams, right? You got to go somewhere where you get the opportunity to play,
of
and
course.
looks like it's not going to be Miami. So I don't know.
You
Which,
know, I have a tough time. I think a lot of us had very high expectations with Jake Garcia, very highly touted, very highly recruited.
yeah,
We don't, but this goes back to what we were saying previously on one of the other programs. I can't remember which one it was after, but we see these kids in the games when it's the most important, but we don't see them in the practice day by
yeah,
day, week by week.
yep,
So are these kids showing something in practice that they're not showing in the games? I don't know. Are they showing something in the games that they're not showing in practice? Obviously, because you see kids who
yeah.
are third string making plays sometimes. So I don't know what the future will hold for Jake Garcia, but it seems to me like he might not be taking practice so very seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's a shame. He's
I'm
immensely
not there.
talented, but yeah, I mean, I'm not either. But yeah, it just at this point, like, if he's in year two now, he has all the tools. He has uh, the recruiting background that he
Yeah.
has, right? Very highly desired player coming out of high school. Like, I mean,
Physical tools as
yeah,
well. Like he
if I
can
was
throw
in
it. He
his
throws a nice
corner,
ball, man.
if I was in his corner, I'd tell him to shop around. I'm sure there's Power Five programs that want him really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a big Power Five program that took him happily.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We'll see.
He's definitely got that ability. So
Yeah,
I wish for the best for him. He seems like a very nice kid. He seems very nice. He's got the talent. It goes back to what you said. I just don't know if it's going to happen at Miami specifically.
yeah.
Doesn't mean it
Which,
can't happen.
yeah,
Joe Burrow went to Louisiana State. Justin Fields went to Ohio State. I'm not saying that he's those guys, but sometimes the guy who has that talent to get to that next level doesn't get his opportunity on the team that he's currently on.
yeah. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. Like I think we're all still bewildered about the Tate Martell situation. Like I mean, I never saw him in practice, but I kind of refuse to believe that he could have been so good in high school and that his ability just didn't translate. Like there's so
At
much.
least a little.
Yeah, exactly. At least a little, right? There's so much that goes into being a good quarterback, especially that you never know what's going on. behind the scenes, whether it's personal stuff, whether it's attitude and approach, that maybe they're not taking their approach to college football as serious as they need to. Um, yeah, I mean it's different than high school.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, especially
There,
playing.
there are some guys you have to flip a switch, and you almost have to be a psycho about it.
Yeah,
There's a reason why they say, "Oh, well, all these like two-star players," but then they end up becoming pros. That's why the star system doesn't matter. No, the star system matters. It's just you're identifying like, oh, he's got dog in him. Well, sometimes dog doesn't always translate onto the field,
yeah,
but when you have the natural frame, you've got a guy who like Josh Allen, not very highly recruited out of
yeah,
high school, has all the physical tools, but he has the desire, that almost psychopathic
yeah,
work ethic desire to, I'm going to do it. 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 As opposed to everybody sucking your dick from the time you're 16 years old. So
yeah,
it's different. It just is. It is.
for
And kids
sure.
get their heads inflated. There's no argument about that.
Yeah, I mean, I not that I ever did anything important in my life in sports. I'm certainly not saying that, but I was like I grew a little faster than most kids. So when I was like 11 and 12 years old, I was out of all the kids at my school, I was the best at football, I was the best at basketball, I was the best at baseball, all this stuff, and didn't take it seriously though. I was just like, I'm the best, cool. And then by the time that I was like 17, I was maybe a little bit above average, but I was coasting on talent. It was, and
Yeah.
I think that same thing applies. As you're saying, it's like, do people obsess with being great, like obsessed with the process of getting better every day? And I think that is more unique than it is common.
Yeah, certainly the exception, not the rule. There's no
Yeah,
argument about that whatsoever.
yeah,
Um, and then you get the ones where the ability does match that work ethic, and it turns into something incredibly special.
yeah.
Not sure that we have that in the quarterback room right now, currently.
I
But
don't think
hey,
we do.
Jakari looked real sharp today. Again, I know the throws were not great, but the
Yeah,
throws were there.
yeah,
He had a couple of poor overthrows on some ones that might have been made, but I go back to it again and say the kid was playing high school football 1 year ago.
yeah,
He was not supposed to play a down this season. He was not supposed to
yeah.
play 1 minute of real football this year, and here he is starting.
Well, you know what our offense kind of looked like to me today, and I understand that the pros in college are very different. Our offense to me and Jakari Brown himself, like it kind of looked like the rookie year of Lamar Jackson on the Ravens, in the sense that obviously good things were happening. We won by a lot. Overall, it was a great performance, by the team. But if you want to nitpick, there's a lot to nitpick. you know,
Certainly.
so but and credit to Lamar, he's done a lot to improve his game. I think he's a very he's a good quarterback now. He's absolutely elite top 3 football player in the league, but he's a good quarterback now. And I hope that Jakari Brown has that ability to become a good college quarterback, along with being a physical freak and a great football player.
Yeah. And we see the physical attributes. He does put himself out there on runs a little more than I would like, which I'm sure you, as a Bills fan with Josh Allen, you see
Yeah.
that now twice a weekend. So I'm sure that's a little bit, stressful at times.
Yeah.
But he does put himself out there a little bit. But I think that one of my favorite things, and I don't know if this just isn't really taught as much as it should be taught to kids on all levels at all different positions, is this ability or this kind of nose, this kind of instinct, whatever you want to call it, to just fall forward for an extra couple of yards. Jakari had a very, very nice run.
Yeah.
I can't remember at what point in the game it happened, but he got hit 2 yards short of the line of scrimmage, and not like some little shoestring by a safety who shouldn't even be
Yeah.
on the field. A very solid contact hit, 2 yards short, and
Yeah.
he leans forward, falls over the line of scrimmage, and it ends up being a first down, as
Yeah.
opposed to just getting hit and now you're 3 yards short of the first down. Completely
Yeah.
different situation at hand on the next play.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about NFL football, but I think they were discussing, man, they were discussing, one of the teams. I can't remember. It might have been Carolina. But the differences between like a Baker Mayfield and a PJ Walker, they talked about mobility. And they said the reason why you see teams raise their floor when they have a running quarterback is because they said the biggest swing in expected points, if you're looking at it from an analytic or advanced statistic approach, the biggest swing in expected points scored is when you have a quarterback that can turn a 6-yard sack into a 1-yard gain.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along with what you're saying, even if falling forward is the difference between a 2-yard sack and a 2-yard gain. But just that concept of Jakari giving us the ability to turn negative plays into neutral plays, like that kind of is a brain bending concept to think that is the biggest swing in how well your offense does is just negating negative plays. You don't even have to be positive. It's just limiting those negative plays.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech had one earlier today where they had Jakari dead to rights. Unfortunately, he did get an intentional grounding.
Yeah.
However, if he would have just taken the sack, it was a loss of like 1. But in watching the way that Van Dyke and Garcia have played so far this season, that would have been a play that otherwise would have been a loss of, say, 8. You know what I'm saying? So it ended up being worse than it should have been because of the intentional grounding penalty. But again, high school quarterback a year ago. Jakari Brown gets a pass for me on anything. He's playing with house money as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, it's first year playing college football. He was in high school a year ago. New offensive coordinator, struggling with the system, and a kid who, for what it's worth, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, was probably told and just short of promised that this season you're getting a red shirt. You're not going to play a minute. You're not going to play a down of real football this year. Because it's going to be Tyler Van Dyke leading the way. And if he, for whatever reason, gets injured or struggles, it's clearly Jake Garcia. And then it was like a very clear tier establishment before the season started. So he probably thought before the season he's not even going to play a down of real ball unless we're ahead by 1 million or down by 1 million. Well, here he goes. As you just mentioned, first real start today, played a real game, and now start number 2, going at Clemson. Good luck, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you about house money. There is nothing that Jakari could do this year that would make me like totally write him off and be like transfer,
Get off my
like,
team. Yeah, not a chance.
Yeah, there's nothing that he could do. I also think it would be hard for him to make me pencil him in for the starter next year, just because of his play style. I mean, maybe if he goes for like over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns next week against Clemson through the air, then maybe I'll pencil him in for next season. But I also think I'm actually kind of expecting a transfer to start for us next year. I don't know about you.
So it's a difficult question because with the transfer portal, the way it's really just taken this whole new life. It used to be you're like, well, I mean, there might be 1 or 2 quarterbacks in the portal. Now you're thinking there might be 10 new quarterbacks in the portal in any given off season. So, the way you're saying it with like the odds, is it Jakari or the field? I think the smart money is the field.
Yeah.
However, I'm not surprised at all if Jakari ends up being the starter next year. But I see what you mean exactly about like what are the odds? Totally.
Yeah. I'm so open-minded to Jakari starting next year. I mean, we'll see what the roster looks like. If Mario's approach is that like, this was a growing year, and that next year is also a growing year, then I mean, if we're trying to limit expectations for next season, then why not start Jakari, right? I think he is a player with pretty much limitless potential for college football. So why not? But, if we're trying to establish winning culture next year, while I'm open-minded to it, his limitations are visible even when he plays well. I mean, we kind of
Oh, I
talked
mean, he
about.
missed Restrepo on a beautiful pass right
Yeah,
over the middle it was a touchdown. Restrepo had about
yeah,
2.5, 3 yards of separation almost,
yeah,
and it was a beautiful opportunity. Unfortunately, he did overthrow him by about a mile.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but again, high school quarterback a year
for
ago,
sure,
and
for sure.
we can't point out these criticisms of him throwing the ball without pointing out the fact that the reason he was able to throw 3 dead duck touchdowns today is because of his running ability.
Absolutely. It's the good with the bad. And
Yeah.
I'm open to it next year, but
The same way we say, oh, well, Tyler Van Dyke can throw a 65-yard bomb, but he's not going to break off a 15-yard run where he's doing dead leg
yep,
cuts in and out of the middle of the
yep,
field. So
yeah.
you give and you take, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference of TVD as the type of arm that he can throw guys open, and he's that kind of QB. Whereas Jakari is pretty much creating open receivers with his running threat, and then just praying he gets the ball there. you know,
Yeah.
um, but I wonder what this will look
Well,
like against.
get whoever's playing zone to cheat up, and then
Yeah,
hopefully one of your receivers in the back gets a little bit of separation, and
yep, yep.
then the rest, you can make a play out of that.
Yeah, I will be interested to see how this goes against Clemson and Pitt. We'll see if Jakari gets the opportunity to even play. But against a good defense, I wonder if they will be able to shut our run game down to the point that they don't feel the need to cheat. you know, like against Pitt's defense, if Pitt is holding us to like 2 or 3 yards a carry with Jakari at quarterback, that could get ugly very quickly.
Yeah.
So
So I think that where we have our biggest challenges in the upcoming weeks is the trenches. Ironically, Cristobal and Mirabal at the beginning of the season said this was going to be the number one strength of the team is being dominant in the trenches. Defensive lines look great, don't get me wrong, but you're going against two units that are tremendous from the defensive line standpoint against our offensive line. Forgive me if I'm hesitant to say we're winning one of the next two. I think we go 0-2.
I did too.
I'd love to be wrong, obviously. I'd love to be wrong.
Oh, for
But
sure. And we were talking a few games back about the next 5 games or the next 4 games, and I threw out the possibility of 1-4. The fact that we could go 2-3 is not bad. Getting wins over Virginia and Georgia Tech. Did we lose to Duke or did we beat Duke? I can't
we
remember.
lost to Duke badly, actually.
Yikes.
Yeah, we lost to Duke pretty bad. I think it was. I don't have the score off the top of my head, but I want to say 45-21.
That's right. Yeah. So 5-7 is actually not bad considering where we were 3 weeks ago, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know people might not be happy to hear that, but I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about though. We went over those last 5 or 6 games and I was like, there's a lot of losses on here, man.
Yeah.
I just feel good that with a team like Georgia Tech that we beat them handily.
Yeah. And man, I really wish that I could say that I felt tremendously confident about it. This might be a decent opportunity to transition to the touchdown ratio that we were discussing, because what I've been doing recently is comparing offensive touchdowns versus defensive touchdowns. Just completely take really any kind of special teams consideration out of the equation. Today, 4 offensive touchdowns scored versus 2 defensive touchdowns given up. That's a straight up victory, straight up football, 28-14. In other words, in it, like if it was 7-on-7 or something like that, it's a 28-14 win. Do you really feel good about the fact that you only scored 2 more touchdowns than Georgia Tech?
It's especially considering they were on second and third string quarterback.
Oh yeah, and they're rotating out quarterbacks. I mean, they had the one right before halftime, and let me put it this way: if they would have held them, if they would have stopped them on that 4th down instead of getting the penalty, giving them the 1st and goal in the 4th quarter to let them get that garbage time touchdown, I would have said, okay, right before halftime, 99-yard touchdown by Georgia Tech, a team that hasn't done anything else all day. That's a fluke. Cristobal and the team was ready to get into halftime. Georgia Tech was just trying to steal a little bit of momentum back before they get the ball back to start the third quarter. Totally fine. I would have written it off as a fluke. Then you get that terrible dumb penalty in the fourth quarter. So now I'm sitting there going, okay, so you give up a touchdown to end the second quarter right before halftime. Then you give up a touchdown when we're supposed to be stepping on their throats and ending the game.
Yeah. So I definitely get what you're saying.
And 35 to 14 is a fluke. That's not, it's like I said, it's not real, because a 99-yard Cam Kinchin's interception, 3 interceptions on the day. Love the kid, fantastic player, has this innate ability to be in the right place at the right time all of the time. However, you can't count on 3 Kinchin's interceptions, one of which goes 99 yards to the house every week. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't count on it every week, and you particularly can't count on it against decent teams. Georgia Tech, no disrespect, but they're not exactly the kind of team that we're talking about, hey, when the U is back, oh, wow, we got past Georgia Tech on some technicalities.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Especially when they've fired their coach and their starting quarterback is unavailable. So,
yeah, so doing a two quarterback system, both guys barely go over 50% completion. Yeah. Both guys, you said, threw 2 picks. Granted, Tyreek Stevenson caught a cream puff that I think Stephen Hawking could have caught, but it's an overall bad game. It's an overall, excuse me, I don't want to say it's an overall bad game. It was a fine game. We won, obviously, but you can point and nitpick certain things. You can critique very many things. Yeah. Well, why was it 35-7 when it could have been 42 to? Oh, excuse me, I keep on saying 7. They have the garbage time touchdown.
Yeah. I am a big proponent of, I mean, this is why I kind of came out of our first 2 games pessimistic, and I caught a lot of flack for it. But I'm a big proponent of the fact that you watch a performance like today and you say, if we play like this against Clemson, what happens? Like, we get slaughtered. I am so fine saying that. And you know, I think we've done a good job of giving everybody flowers that deserved it today. We've, you know, touched on the positive, but there is no harm in saying, what does today look like if we play a competent team? Which is why coming out of, you know, the first 2 or 3 games, I was like, you know what? We're the worst team in Florida right now, you know, and I've stood by it. I've stood by it all season. And, you know, it proved that there was a little bit of substance to it. It wasn't just playing down to our opponents. It was the fact that we were just never a good football team to begin with. Yeah. So I think you learn a lot from ugly wins against bad teams. And I wouldn't call today necessarily an ugly win, but it wasn't a pretty win either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like I said, you don't want to be deceived by the score. Even though their scores only came to end the half and end the fourth quarter, that's still 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That happened in crucial moments. And I think this is where we really have a tough time, is like they came during moments when you knew they were going for it. You knew they were going to try to score right before halftime. Yeah. You know they're getting the ball to start the third quarter. You're already up 14-zip. You know they want a touchdown here. What are you doing? Same thing in the fourth quarter. You know they want to make this respectable. It's their homecoming game. They're down 35-7. You know they're throwing it. You know they want to make this a respectable loss.
Yeah.
You're giving up touchdowns when you know what they're doing. You know they're throwing the ball. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense, man. So let's wrap up. We're about 38 minutes into this. Any last second thoughts, things that you wanted to go over before we close up shop?
Shout out Andy Borogalis, 5 for 5 on PATs today. Did not get a field goal opportunity, which I do feel is another indicator to make a positive comment on the offense. The fact that we didn't even give ourselves an opportunity to be in field goal position. A lot of punts, but when we didn't punt, it was a touchdown. Other than that, Borogalis, 5 for 5 on PATs. Great day.
Yep, I agree, man. We love Andy. He's a good kid. You know, interacted with him a lot when he was in high school on Twitter. So, yes, I appreciate you pointing that out. So 2 last second thoughts. 1, what's your feelings on the Georgia Tech helmets? I'm a big fan of helmets equipment. I thought the gold was, you know, the gold in their lettering popped, looked amazing on the TV. Big fan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am a fan of teams doing something a little bit different with the uniforms.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of it. I resent the fact that we didn't wear our black jerseys this year, black uniforms this
yeah,
year. But I love it when teams get an opportunity to do something different and creative, especially in an important game. They're at home. It was, like I said, their homecoming, senior night kind
yeah.
of situation. Sucks for the home fans and the players that it ended in a loss. However, always cool to see a team try something
Yeah.
different.
Yep. And then point two, does it make me a terrible Canes fan that I am not going to miss the bowl game this year? In terms of we probably won't be bowl eligible, and honestly, not sure I care.
Yeah, I think that on its face definitely does not make you a bad Canes
Yeah.
fan. I think that on its face that's completely acceptable. There's a lot of people that aren't even going to really watch the rest of the way.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that you can say about hoping that we win one of two from Clemson and Pitt is that bowl eligibility means an extra month of practice,
Yeah.
and
That's a great point.
therefore you can really only take that away from it. If we do manage to beat Clemson, that would be crazy. But if we end up finishing with 6 wins by beating Pitt in the
Yeah.
finale, I will be looking forward to that as just another month of opportunities for Mario to evaluate the guys that are on
Yeah.
the roster.
That's a great point, and making me reconsider. But, to be honest,
I'm not
I'm
going to
not.
watch the game though.
Yeah, I'm like, it sucks being, close to the holidays, like December 23rd, and watching the Canes get embarrassed by Kansas State. I mean, it happens every year.
One more time.
In the Albertsons Grocery Bowl or whatever, like just some stupid. I mean, we're not even the Cheez-It Bowl is looking down on us right now.
Cheesables like Miami, who?
Yeah, right. Like, no, we've moved on to bigger and better things.
Please.
Um,
I've got
yeah,
Central Piedmont Community College on speed dial.
yeah, right. So, yeah, I'm not really going to miss just having like I'm excited to put this season in the rearview mirror, man. And so, if our last game is Pitt, you will not see me frowning about it. But you're
Yeah.
right, though. The extra month of practice would be really great for this roster. I'm
Ooh,
just excited
one
to.
other, another really last thing, I suppose.
Yeah,
I am not saying that it's the only time it's happened. I'm saying it's one of the only times that I've actually seen it. Before we gave up the garbage time touchdown on an embarrassing penalty, I actually saw Mario kind of like smiling and laughing, seemingly having a good time on the sideline. At that point, we were up 35-7 and appearing to get ready to shut them down on 4th down and then go in victory formation, win it straight up.
yeah,
But he looked like he was actually having fun out there today. And I got to tell you, them last few couple of games, even really earlier in the season, he didn't seem like he was having too much fun out there.
yeah. So I don't want a political answer from you. I want a straight up Petrie answer. In Mario's heart of hearts, how much do you think he regrets taking this job? And it's fine
Regrets.
if you don't think he regrets it all, that's fine. I'm just encouraging you to tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, that's a really hard question. Does he regret it? I'm going to say a low percentage chance that he regrets it. I don't think he regrets a tough word.
Yeah.
I don't think he regrets it. I think he might be thinking that it would have been easier had he just been playing par for the course at Oregon. However, saying that out loud makes me think like kind of dirty. I'm like, that doesn't seem like Mario at all. Playing for par for the course, that doesn't seem like his
Agreed.
style. That doesn't seem like his attitude. So regret, maybe not. Does he realize that it would have been a little bit easier sledding this year at Oregon? Probably. I'm sure he realizes that.
Yeah.
But I think he's probably, like you said, ready to put this season in the rearview mirror. He's probably making phone calls and hanging out in Atlanta, catching some Georgia high school football. Trying to see some recruits or something. Because Georgia plays a good bit of high school football. They play some good ball down there, or up there rather, I should say, for me. But
they do.
So he's probably ready to get out of the game and watch some high school ball or watch some film.
We should look into this. We should try to chart the effect of humidity and how that has an effect on Mario's ability to win football games.
Oh, Jesus.
Because not great at FIU, goes to Oregon, lots of success in Oregon.
Yeah.
It's, and then back down
Struggles
to
in
Miami.
Miami, and then tonight I think in Atlanta they were saying it was in the 40s. They were
Yeah.
saying that it was in the 40s, which isn't exactly frigid, but it ain't exactly toasty.
Yeah, dude. So when I really need to go, but I'm having a great time. So when I went down to Miami, I flew in on a Thursday, and I woke up on Thursday. It was snowing here in Salt Lake. It was about 32 degrees, maybe a little warmer than that, 35. Caught my flight to Miami. Get off the plane. It's 87 degrees and very humid, and you can't see my full body. I'm wearing black running shoes, black skinny jeans, black t-shirt, black hat. I was pretty much wearing the same thing getting off my plane. Very clearly not from Miami, I think, for everyone that saw me
And so
walking
what
through the
happened
airport.
when you picked up your melted shoes off the tarmac?
I first had to pick up my melted self because because I think Utah averages about 15 to 20% humidity. Very dry in these parts, and yeah, direct sunlight had me feeling like an ice cube while
Yeah,
I was
that
down there.
129% humidity just smacked you right in the teeth.
Oh my gosh! And it felt good when I was in shade, but during the tailgate, I was in direct sunlight, and the humidity was just smothering. And yeah, it's not something I'm used to.
I
I'm a
think the
polar.
Bills said the same thing when they played the Dolphins. They said it felt
Yeah,
nice they said it felt nice in the shade, but they said something about the sun was tough. I don't know.
dude, sports fans are so lame. Because Bills fans were such crybabies about that. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. Do I think that
Conversation
weather?
for another time. I know you got stuff to
Yeah,
do,
I,
so I'll leave
I
you to it.
think weather had an effect on that game for sure. But at the same time, like people are like, this is an OSHA violation. Get out of here, dude. Do I feel a lot better that if Buffalo has to play in Miami in the playoffs, that it'll be January and not in September? Yeah, I feel pretty great about that actually.
Surely.
But whatever, dude. Crybaby sports fans. I'm tired of it. Okay. All right. Well, let's sign off for the day. Make sure you check out aboutthefans.com. Petrie's wearing a shirt. I'm wearing my shirt. Got my hat going. Um,
Oh, shout out Gino. He had to miss today because of military obligations.
yes.
Shout out to all of the military veterans this weekend.
Yep.
If you're a member of Canes fam or if you are not, we want to thank you for your service and everything that you do. And shout out to our boy Gino, who is fulfilling his obligations right now and had to miss our stupid little show.
Yep. Yep. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it. But yeah, take care until next time. Go Canes, everybody.
Go Canes. Later, Jordan.
Later, man.